Hi, everyone. Can you guys hear me? I think it's on mute. Hey, yeah, we can hear you. How are you? Good, good. How's everyone doing? Yeah, yeah, Erica should be joining. in a bit. Yeah, yeah, that sounds good. Cool.
Yes. Hi. How are you? Yeah, I'm doing well. Things are good. I'm not in New York. Yeah. Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you. It's great to be here. Hi, Dhruv. Hi, everyone. Hi. Hi.
So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
sounds good. Thank you. Yeah, it's great to be here. Okay. Yeah, thanks. Hi, everyone. How are you all doing? It's cool to see, it's cool to see a lot of people in person. That's great. Um, awesome. So I'm Erica Hanson. I lead the Google Developer Student Clubs program globally, and I've been at Google about 14 years. Yeah, I'll share a few. I have a few career tips, but first, Dhruv, did you want to introduce yourself and share some of your tips, or did you want me to go through some of mine first?
You can get started, Erica. Maybe I'll jump in afterwards.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So I'm going to present a few slides. Here we go. Okay. Cool. Can you see the slides? Is it big enough there? Okay, cool. Yeah, so I'll share a bit about my career journey and what I learned, and then pass it over to Dhruv, and then we'd be happy to answer any questions afterwards. So first, I'll share a bit about me and my career journey. So I'm originally from California, but I live in New York right now. I went to Stanford University. I studied psychology and communications. I was interested in technology, but was also very much interested in psychology. And then I basically joined Google right after. I handed in my resume at a job fair, and joined right out of college. I joined like entry level, and I was initially doing sales and working with small to medium-sized businesses on their advertising accounts with Google. But I also was answering the phone. So anyone who had a question about their advertising or about the internet or Google in general, I would get those calls. So I got quite a few entertaining calls as well. So that was 14 years ago. Eventually, I moved to London. That's the picture on the left. That was, I joined the sales strategy and operations team, which is basically project management work. And I enjoyed it. I did that for about 3 years, but I wanted to make more of an impact, and I wanted to work on more interesting projects. So I was always looking for 20% projects. And at Google, you have the ability to work on a side project for about 20% time. So I started to manage a mentoring program. It connected startups with Google mentors. And I really enjoyed that. I realized I like mentoring and I like working with startups. So that was cool. Eventually, I was always looking for new kind of side hustles or opportunities. And I applied for a rotation program where I could go for 3 months to Singapore. And I got that. And so I was managing a program called Women on the Web. And I was supporting women and starting their businesses online. And it was like a training program. And I got to go to Pakistan and Malaysia, and I loved that. So I eventually was looking for jobs in Singapore and found a job on this team. And I moved to Singapore full time. I lived there for 4 years. That's when I joined the developer relations team, and that's the team I'm on today. So I'm a program manager still I manage develop programs for developers, and the goal is really to help developers be more successful. We run a lot of training programs. We do things through communities like Google Developer Student Clubs. And I focused on Indonesia and really enjoyed that. And that's when I started to love community. And I thought, you know what, I want to start a community of my own for women in tech. So I started Geek Girl Meetup. That's the logo at the bottom, the GGM. And it was a community for women in tech. We did a lot of events around startups and design. We did design sprints. So that was a lot of fun. And then I moved to New York, and that's where I am today. That's the New York picture. I've been here for 3 years, and I've been leading the Google Developer Student Clubs program globally, which has been a lot of fun. So that's the journey. Basically, every 3 to 4 years, I tend to move countries, move teams, but it's always fun to have these side projects or the 20% projects to kind of figure out what do I like learning and just to meet and network with other teams. So I'll share a little bit about what a program manager is. That's what I do now. And I had no idea what this job was until I got into the role, really. I mean, I had an idea, but basically this is kind of the summary of what I do every day. So leading this program, I have to think about as the strategy of the program. I also have to plan like budgets, and I work a lot in like project trackers. So I just put kind of a sample one up there. And it's really, you know, kind of staying organized, setting the strategy, coming up with goals and the timeline, and then executing and closing things out. So a lot of meetings, definitely a lot of meetings. This Dhruv would probably say attest to. So a lot of meetings with our teammates. This is our team on the bottom right. We're from all over the world, and I have to lead a lot of team meetings and check in and get feedback on things. And then of course, meeting with students like you is also part of that, and getting feedback and thinking about how do we improve this program. I'll just briefly talk about some of the steps that I follow. Just really, you know, getting started with the project is kind of scoping it out and figuring out, first of all, why should we even start this project? Why do we need it? What are the goals of this? And then once it's a go, you just start the planning phase. For me, I like setting up a core team, and we meet regularly to discuss, and we just kind of plan out the timeline, the milestones, what are the goals, and just basically start executing and making it happen. And then when we close, it's always good to review what went well, what to improve. I do like retrospectives with the team, and we discuss how do we make this better the next time. And I make sure to thank people, recognize people who helped support the project. And so that's pretty much how I take on any project that I'm working on. So that's program management. And then I wanted to briefly share just 3 things that I've learned over the last 14 years at Google. And it's all about focusing on your strengths, the power of communities, and the fact that reflection is really important. So the first thing is focusing on strengths. The answer is right at your feet. Basically, you have strengths already. So you just kind of have to reflect on, you know, what are those strengths? They're really already there and right in front of you, right at your feet. So just a matter of really having the confidence and thinking through, like, what am I good at? What are my strengths? What are my skills? What am I passionate about? What makes me happy in a day? And then really doubling down on those strengths. I have the Strengths Finder book. I don't know if you've heard about this before. How many of you have heard about this book, Strengths Finder, or anybody? So it's all about just figuring out, you know, what are your strengths. There's like a questionnaire. And when I took the test, it tells you what are your kind of 5 key strengths. So one thing that came up, I've taken it twice, is it's a lot around like positivity, communication. I do like to activate things, achieve. But one thing is that was consistent is just the positivity piece. And I realized that when I take on projects, and when I'm working on projects, I do tend to be more positive about that. And instead of thinking about the negative things or this is going wrong, I'm like, oh no, we're learning from this. We messed up on this. Let's learn something new so we can improve it the next time. And even if timelines seem a bit tight, I just kind of push forward. But I do tend to put like a positive spin, and I like positivity when, we're in team meetings, and to make it a little bit more fun. Also, another thing that's helpful is just going through values and figuring out, are there things in your personal life that are also consistently your values in your work life? For me, I like creativity, growth, community, health. I'm part of various communities at Google, but I'm also part of communities outside of Google as well. I like to join communities to meet other people, learn new skills, and just see if maybe join up with other people on projects. So I think that's been a helpful exercise for me as well. And then other strengths and how I've been able to kind of craft my roles. One thing I worked on was I started in Indonesia, was the Indonesia Android Kejar program. It was basically combining online learning with in-person facilitator-led workshops and trainings, all focused on Android. Then people worked on projects. So I really enjoyed working on that. And I really wanted to figure out, how do we make this program better, and tried to gather feedback from people and see what's missing. How do we improve this? And one thing I learned was there was a request from some of the women to have, separate kind of Android specific groups for them, and to get some more, they just wanted to have another space to do that. And so we had women tech makers study groups, and those went really well. And I also wanted to learn it, go through the process myself. So I completed the Udacity Android for Beginners session, and I became a co-facilitator as well, because I wanted to go through the program partially as a way to figure out how do we make this program even better. And so as I went through that whole process, I was not technical when I joined this team, and we are part of developer relations. And at that time, most of my teammates were technical. But how was I able to still manage a program? I just really focused on my strengths, and the strengths that I have are collaboration and finding partnerships and other teams and people to bring in to support me. And another thing is just really analyzing, how are things going and how do we make it better, by getting feedback directly from people, by going through the program myself as a user to see, is this working well and how do we improve it? And then making those improvements. And so that's when I was still able to basically be successful on a team where most people are technical, is just by focusing on my strengths and knowing what I like doing and what am I good at, and just really doubling down on that so that I could also add value to the team and make an impact. The other tip I would have is the power of communities. I think being a part of communities, as all of you are, you're part of this Google Developer Student Club. Being an active member in communities is great, and something I highly recommend. I first got interested in communities when I moved to Singapore, and basically this was the first community event I went to. It was a Google Business Groups event in Malaysia, and I loved it. I loved the people coming together to learn, to work on projects together. I love the energy. And so that's when, as I mentioned earlier, that's when I decided to start Geek Girl Meetup Singapore. I didn't just want to be a member of a community, but I wanted to start one, or co-lead, be part of the core team and co-lead efforts. So this was the team, the three of us on the left, and with it on the right, this was a 3D printing workshop, which was really fun. We also did a lot of events around startups. And I really loved that experience because I loved meeting other people. And actually, one of the women on the left, I met them at a startup networking event. And so we just said, hey, we both want to start a community. Let's do it. And so we met through a different community event. And so that is the power of community. You can meet, work on projects together, build communities together. There's a lot you can do. And so these are the communities that I joined in New York. A lot of these were outside of Google, but you know, I did join a book club, and it was just a way to meet other people and to read and have discussions about books. And that's on the right. It's I joined a marathon team. I wanted to be part of a team and get exercise, and so I ran my first marathon. But for me, you know, just being a part of communities is just a really rewarding experience. And I always like this. This was Hannah. She was a part of Google developer student groups in the past. And this is just an example of being an active participant in a community, which I think is also very valuable. She was a member of a Google developer student club. Eventually, she became a co-lead and then a lead. And eventually, she went from an attendee of a DevFest. It's like a tech event run by Google developer groups. So she was an attendee, and then the next year, she became a speaker. And so I just think it's cool to be, you know, maybe you're, you know, a member now, but then you can, you know, facilitate workshops in the future potentially, or be part of the core team, or speak at an event eventually, or just being active and engaging with other people. Maybe you work on projects with others, but I do think there's a lot of value in being an active participant, and I think you can get more out of it that way. And you are all part of a global community. There are 1,265 Google developer student clubs around the world in 106 countries. So you are part of a global network or community. And so that's something that's really resonated with me, is the power of communities over the last 7 years that I've been on the developer relations team. So I just think it's such a great way to be around people interested in tech, passionate about tech, sharing information with each other and mentoring each other and building projects together. I think it just makes it a more meaningful experience if you're doing it with community. So the last and third thing is reflection is key. So I do think it's good to take a step back and just figure out, you know, what are the things you like doing? What don't you like doing? Sometimes you have to still do the things you don't like, but it's good to put a positive spin and think about what are you learning and what are you gaining from that. And some of the exercises that I've done, this was part of a career development training at Google. I led a couple sessions for that. And one thing we did was, what is your ideal day? What does an ideal day look like? For me, I looked at my ideal work day. How do I want to be spending my time? And one thing I added, this is New York. I like going for a walk, for example, and that's a way I can kind of clear my head. And everyone has different things that they do, but for me, I get a lot of value out of just, you know, taking a step back, going for a walk, and that's sometimes when I'm just like more creative with ideas for work. So that's, I kind of went through my own process of what an ideal day looks like. It's, you know, having more time to kind of brainstorm and think about strategy versus too many meetings. So I should really adjust that, but I think that exercise is helpful. For me, I do like meditation, you know, the breathing exercises for me personally, I think that helps a lot. And for me, regular journaling and kind of just to kind of reflect and think through things. I also brainstorm. I do a lot of like drawing of things too, to kind of brainstorm, how do I work on this specific project, make it better? And so it helps to have like a pen and paper to kind of, because I'm a visual person, and to sort of map it out. And also that reflection helps to think about, you know, what am I good at? Should I spend more time doing? Are there things that I'm missing out on? Are there other people I should be networking with to get more ideas from them, or work on something together? And another thing This was another exercise through this career development training, just thinking about your 1-year vision. What is one goal for this year? What is one thing that you want to achieve, whether it's within, your university, within your job, anything, personal life, just thinking about that vision, and then working your way backwards of how can you get there. But it's good to kind of plan ahead in 1 year time, 5 years time. It doesn't always happen though. Things, sometimes it's, everything is just unexpected, and there's a lot of great things you can learn from that too. But it is nice to take a step back to really reflect and yeah, I just think that's a good thing to do, to think through, like, as I mentioned already, like what do you like doing and what are your strengths, so that you can really double down on those strengths. But I do think it's important to think about what are your weaknesses as well, and think about how you improve that. But for me, I like to put more time into doubling down on the strengths as well. So those are the 3 things that I've learned and really focused on: is focusing on strengths, the power of communities, and reflection is key. So that's it for me. And feel free to follow me on Twitter, LinkedIn, or Instagram. It's Erica Community, and I'd love to stay connected. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so, yeah.
Yeah, any questions are fine. Yeah, whatever you prefer. I can answer questions now, or we can answer them at the end after Dhruv. It's totally up to you. Okay, cool. Yeah, for sure. Sure, you're welcome. I'll pass it to Dhruv.
Awesome. Thanks all. Hey, so I'm Dhruv. I'll do a quick introduction, and then I'll talk a little bit about my background. I don't have slides today, but I'll just talk about some of my best tips that I could give to college students, and just talking a little bit about what I went through throughout my whole career journey. But yeah, just to start off, I'm Dhruv. I'm the global project manager for Google Developer Student Club. So Erica and I work closely on all the global initiatives that we take for GDSC. I'm based in New Jersey, which is right outside New York City. And I joined this team actually a year and a couple months ago. So I joined in April 2020. And yeah, it's been an awesome experience ever since. Just learning, on how, like Erica was talking about, program management. This is probably my first real program management role in terms of like the scale of the program. So it's just been amazing, just learning how to properly manage a program, things like tracking projects from end to end. And at the same time, the best part is, of course, like meeting you guys and just getting to know the communities that are actually running the programs. But yeah, that's pretty much my journey about at least how I started with Google. And I wanted to go a little bit behind and talk about where everything got started. So I did my bachelor's of science at a local university here called NJIT. And so I've always been more of a technical person. I always like coding, always tried learning about different technologies like Android, TensorFlow. And then also at the same time, I feel like at that time, that the one thing that was really important was constantly just being able to learn new technologies. So for example, as soon as Android came out, which was, I believe, early 2013, at least that's when the development phase was getting pretty popular for Android. I was always on the lookout for at least seeing if I can find courses about it online, if there's classes on campus that could help me out. So just being proactive in terms of like looking at new technologies would help a lot in the long term. So I'll talk a little bit about my career journey and how everything I did in college helped me get through everywhere. So for example, my first job was at Johnson & Johnson as a developer as well as like a project manager. it was more of a hybrid role of doing both. And this my app. I worked there for about 2 years, and then I worked at Verizon for about 1 year, and then I finally got to Google. And during all the interviews, I think one of the biggest things, or one of the biggest questions that I always had was, what are some of the things you've done, not just like through schoolwork, but what are some of the things that I've done in terms of projects in general? And as I think as a technical person, like anyone that's more of coming in from like computer science role or IT role, I think the number one question you will most likely face in interviews is, what are some of the projects you've done yourselves, right? What is something you took initiative on, and maybe you learned the technology yourself and you actually got to that stage all by yourself. And even for Johnson & Johnson, even for some of my internships, I think my biggest strength was being able to showcase a variety of different projects that I worked on. A lot of these projects included just websites. Some of them were just maybe front-end websites with no real back-end. Some of them were like a full-stack website, including full infrastructure of admin portals and just being able to manage content on the website. And then some of the other things were things like just using Java to create simple applications. And like I mentioned previously, another big piece was just creating Android applications. Just messing around with some ideas that I had, I ended up publishing 2 Android apps on the Google Play Store. And like I said, like one of the main things that the employers loved about my portfolio was that piece, just the amount of projects I had to display. And these projects, I just want to clarify, like there's nothing, it's not like anything crazy. It's just simple projects for me to showcase that I learned these technologies while I was a college student, and I was able to do these projects all by myself, right? So I think it's more about just showcasing the strength you have, and it's less about how perfect or how robust the actual solution or the project is. So yeah, just to reiterate, I think like during the whole job interview phase, that's the biggest piece that they were impressed by. And that's what I would recommend and encourage all college students to at least be on the lookout of new technologies, and just try to, you don't have to do everything yourself, but you just try to find teams and try to get to one particular solution at a time to just quickly learn about a new technology, or like I said, any idea that you have in mind, just try to implement it with your friends. And that's where I guess Solution Challenge comes in as well. And we love, that's one of the main things I manage here. And we just love the whole idea of Solution Challenges for you to at least build a real solution, something you could add to your portfolio, something you could talk to employers about how you're solving a real world challenge, solving the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal. Things like that is what I think employers really like, and it will really help you in your career in the long term. And like one of the main things, personally, like during my interviews, they did not really asking me anything about my college classes. It was surprisingly, that was surprising for me as soon as I got to my first full-time job interview. So by no means I mean like you should completely take off your studies and anything like that, but I do want to emphasize the fact that like more than my college classes, they were interested in about all the projects that I worked on. So yeah, Solution Challenge is a great initiative. I hope you folks got a chance to at least build a solution and participate in this year. If not, there's always Solution Challenge next year. And essentially, it's the same concept, trying to build a real life solution using any skills you have. And then we also provide a bunch of resources for you to learn new technologies like Android or Google Cloud or TensorFlow, things like that. And I was going to also bring up internships. So I know a lot of you folks might be going into internships. That's also another great way to add some variety to your resume and your portfolio. This way, you at least get that real world application in terms of how companies work, right? So there's 2 aspects of this. There's one where you create projects yourselves, things like Solution Challenge or any idea you think of, and you create that project. and there's the other piece of like being able to join an internship and then showcasing that to your future employer for like a full-time job. I think just the mixture of both could really help you have a solid portfolio and resume to get started in the technical world. Um, but yeah, that was just a little bit of my background, and what I want to encourage college students to always do is just to be on the lookout for new technologies and just don't fall behind on that whole spectrum, especially if you're a CS or IT student. And I guess yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Can you ask the question again? Advice for. Mm, mm. Yeah, I think if anything changes, or you do set a goal but you can't achieve that because of obstacles, or maybe you can no longer take that class, I think it's okay. You just kind of adapt, and maybe there's something that you can learn online on your own and just do self-study, or you could learn in other ways. Basically, it's good to always be, I guess, like agile and resilient, and just if things won't work out along the way, for sure, but it's good just to figure out other ways of learning that, or getting to the goal. Or maybe you want to set a new goal. It's okay to change goals throughout, or realize like, oh, actually, this isn't what I want to do, but maybe I'll set a new goal. For me, there have been jobs that I didn't really want to do, but I stuck with it because I wanted to learn something new. I'm not going to just quit something because I don't like it and then, okay, I'll move to something else. It's like this, I I kind of look at what can I still gain from this? What skills am I learning? Are there other ways to build those skills? Maybe have a side project to get there. But I always try to learn. I think there's something that you can learn from anything that you're doing. But yeah, I think it's totally fine to set new goals or figure out other ways to get there in case something falls through. So learning online, or joining communities to do that, or just working on a project that'll force you to kind of learn that because you're working on a project. Uh, and that's like a good hands-on way of learning. So yeah, those are some ways I'd handle that. Right. Okay. Yeah, exams. I know that's definitely the priority is everything, with your university and exams. So, um, no worries, but it's good that you're all part of this community and we're able to do other things.
So you mean for students that are not technical, but they would like to get into the technical side? Hmm. Yeah, that's always a interesting thing to understand about yourself. Just because there's so many different technologies out there. I personally, I believe the best way to understand which track to choose is to actually get hands-on experience with it. So, for example, I would want to create like a small project with all the different technologies. Like the example I brought up earlier, like when I first learned about Android, I just want to create a very simple application. And just doing that allowed me to understand, like, is this something I want to take in my future career path, right? Is this something I want to keep pursuing and getting to learn this in a deeper level? So like things like that, like there's different technologies like you mentioned, like Google Cloud. So for example, I would create like a simple project with using Google Cloud. It could be as simple as like creating a directory that uploads all the data on Google Cloud, and then you're editing it through like a front end client. So things like that is, I think, is the best way to go about it, is just to create some form of project and then reevaluate how you felt while you were creating the project. Did you actually enjoy using that technology? And a lot of times you will not. You might, like for example, some of the new technologies like or I guess they're not new right now, but some things like Angular or like all the front end side of things, I wasn't too big of a fan of. So over time, I just didn't choose that path, like the design path for websites. So I think for anybody, even someone that's coming into the technology or someone's already experienced, the best way to really understand about which track to choose is going to be through hands-on experience. And like I said, it doesn't have to be anything crazy, just a simple project for you to understand which track you should choose. Exactly, that's right. Main emphasis is don't worry about creating like a really big project. It's more about just dipping your toes in, just trying out the technology, and then you'll definitely understand by the end of the project how you felt about the technology and if that's something you want to keep doing in the future.
No, I think that was good. Yeah, there are definitely internships at Google. One thing that I used to do was set Google alerts for any new jobs that get posted, like, and you could pick, whatever keywords. So for me, I was kind of setting up alerts for program manager roles, but you could also set alerts for internships, entry level jobs. But I think for me, it was helpful. I got into Google through an entry level job. So I think that's a good way to just get your foot in the door, even if it's maybe not in a team or department that you necessarily want, but it's good just to get that experience, get your foot in the door. Then for me, it took time to eventually try out different projects. And I was, moved every 3 to 4 years to different teams and countries. But just having just having that entry level job to learn, even though I didn't love it, that's how I was able to gain some skills and then figure out what I did like doing. Because there have been projects there was one project I was kind of thinking, oh, I don't really want to do this. And then once I got into it, I thought, wait, actually, there's so much opportunity. It doesn't just have to be this. I could increase the scope, or why can I just add more to this thing and make it bigger? Why not do this? So then I got creative, and then I made it into something that was better and bigger, and I ended up loving it, actually. So I was able to just kind of change my mindset and think, no, okay, I'm doing it. I've committed. Now let's make this work. And I ended up loving it. So, but yeah, I think, there's internships in different countries as well. I know there's, I've seen internships in like Dublin, Ireland sometimes, and definitely in the US and in other countries as well. So I'd look up internships, and I know that there's apprenticeship programs in some regions, but I'll just message out the Google students. I'll put a link in the chat here. Yeah, there's definitely different internship programs. And I'll share careers.google.com. Definitely has some good things, like you can look up internships that way. So yeah, it's careers.google.com. And then I have a link to more technical roles and some guides. Let me see where I have that. But yeah, I'll pull that up and just share it. Careers for students. And like Dhruv said, it's on a resume. They do look at, just your experience, times when you took initiative. They look at leadership, any projects that they do look at projects. Were you part of any competitions or hackathons or events? Did you win? Or maybe you don't have to be the number one, but like just that you were part of, you were active and participating in hackathons and submitting your projects. So those are some of the things that they do look at. Let's see. Here's a link to, here's some resume tips. I'll just send this link in the chat here. This is a video that talks about it's a 13-minute video, just talks about some of the things to like resume tips. And then this is pathways to tech. I'll send one more guide as well with some resources. Yeah. Cool. So those are, here's the tech guide. I can share my screen as well real quick so you can see. Yeah, I'll just share my screen so you can see. This is a tech guide. And even if you don't apply for a job at Google, I think this could be helpful. There's grow your technical skills. Yeah, there's different collections of things you can look at, and different coding problems, interactive tutorials. So if you're new to computer science, and there's different like pathways you can like go through this, take some quizzes. So yeah, I think this is a good resource. So I just put a couple of those in the chat. It's g.co/tech dev guide. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, I just put it in the chat, the video link and the tech guide. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there's definitely, there's plenty of certifications. I think that's a good thing to do. It's good to, it just shows that you've learned something and you've kind of been certified in some way. let's see. I can share a link. A lot of times I just kind of Google a lot of things, but yeah, let me pull up this link. There's a lot of different certifications, like technical ones, but there's also non-technical project management certifications and things that you could go through. Let's see. I'll just pull that up real quick. Internal team. Okay. This is just a link to various like technical certifications, but I there's also other ones, as I mentioned. Okay. There's developer certifications and then non-technical certifications. So these are just on the Grow with Google website. So here's a link to non-technical. Oh, that's a really long link, but those are non-technical ones. And then here's technical ones. I'll just share my screen real quick. Get certified, see all certifications. This is just on the developers.google.com site. If you go to developers.google.com, then click learn. Then you have pathways, top code labs, content, but then there's certifications here and associate Android developer, TensorFlow, Google Cloud. And then if you click see all, this just talks more about it. So yeah, it's developers.google.com/certification. So those are more technical ones. Yeah, and I just put that in the chat. It's a mix. I know some of them you do have to pay, but I'm sure there's probably ways to get some kind of a scholarship for it. I'm just gonna click in. Let's see. It's a mix. Some are free, some you have to pay. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say I also linked one other link in the chat. So it's not really certificates, but LinkedIn offers courses, and a lot of these are free again. And the cool thing about this is you could add it to your LinkedIn portfolio. It shows up like on your LinkedIn profile. So that's also something to check out. So it's not certificates per se, but it's like a bunch of different courses to help you.
Yeah, so identifying strengths is there's a few different ways to do it. You don't have to take this like online questionnaire to do it. I think it is just reflecting and thinking through what think I'm good at this or not. Like, what are my you could also think about implement you or say, yeah, when you're getting feedback from others, like that's within Google, we have like a performance review every 6 months. And so you get feedback from teammates that say, oh, you're good at this, you should improve in this. But so just hearing from other people like, oh, wow, you did a really good job with collaboration or team building stuff. And so that's one way it will help me get there, is hearing from other people, like what people tend to say, oh, that was really good, or so just feedback from others. But I think just it's even better to think about, like, reflect personally and think about what, things aren't easy for everybody. Is there something that's a bit easier for you to do that you've noticed is a bit easier for you than versus other people? Something that you like to do? Sometimes like when you're really passionate and really get excited about something, there's something there. It's like clicking for you. It's sparking some reaction. So there's something there to kind of further explore. But yeah, it takes, just is reflection really, and not being too worried about it as well. Over time, you'll kind of figure it out. Like I wasn't always sure. It did take some time just to like actually work on projects, do it, get some feedback from other people. But then you kind of, figure it out over time, and I wouldn't worry too much about it. Each person has their own strengths or skills and passions. Everyone brings something to the table and has something to add, their own unique perspective. And I think that makes teams stronger. Yeah. Yeah. I heard laptop. I couldn't hear everything. Do you want to repeat? Yeah, I know. And that's something that you might be able to help like brainstorm with each other. Like that's maybe something to discuss as a group, like what can we do? And I think you're as a group you can brainstorm and discuss that. But yeah, that's difficult. And I think just really being creative and kind of figuring it out, like, okay, I'll have to work on projects at your university or find areas where there is stronger connection, and just like really, getting into your group projects there together. If someone has a laptop, and someone doesn't, it's maybe sharing. So it's really about being creative and just, yeah, you like everything that you already said. I think it's that's something that, ways to get around that. But yeah, I know that can be definitely challenging. But just supporting each other, and if there is someone without a laptop, sharing, or as I mentioned, getting into project teams, and someone maybe has the role of a project manager and is kind of guiding, someone else is doing the coding and they're using the laptop. It's really all about being creative and just resilient and sort of trying to figure out how to do it together as a group, and supporting each other. But yeah, I know that's tough. Yeah, we could take one more. We do have a meeting that we have to hop off and run to, but we could do it quickly. Okay. I don't think there's remote ones, or maybe there are now. I would just go to the Google career site. I'm just going to Google it now. Let me just see real quick. I'm not sure. I think there probably are. Let me see. Ships, and if not, you can always try applying to. Yeah, it looks like there are. But I would just look at the careers.google.com site, and also you can set alerts, Google alerts, when jobs open up. And I think there are some internships. Yeah, I'm seeing something. Google Business Intern. So yeah, but there's also in other countries as well. I don't know if that's an option, but they definitely have them all over the world. Things are probably remote right now since things are mostly virtual. But yeah, I would check out the careers.google.com site. But I'm pretty sure I'm seeing one there right now. Yeah. Cool. Let's see, internships. Yeah, I would just look around. I was trying to look too. Anyways, yeah, and then you can turn on alerts. Cool. Yeah, well, thank you. We better hop off, but thanks so much for inviting us. This was fun.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, thanks. Bye.
Yeah. Bye.